Good evening, my dear. Do you remember me? Yes, you're stranger from the harbor. Sorry to intrude like this, but I believe this is yours. This handkerchief is yours, yes? After we went our separate ways, I saw it escape your pocket and float down to the harbor waters. You see, I would have handed it back to you, but it was soaked through. I didn't think you would appreciate a ruined handkerchief, so I decided to keep a hold of it and dry it off for you. Here, you can take it. Don't fret, I haven't done anything to it. I swear upon my own grave. Ah, yes. It was torn slightly, so I thought I'd sew it back together for you. I apologize. I wasn't able to find any threads to match the design, so I'm afraid there's a large brown stitch across it now. Hope it doesn't ruin the design too much for you. I suppose you're right. Imperfection is perfection. The stitch adds personality, is that what you're saying? Yes? That's a very charming way of thought. Oh, are you sure? I wouldn't want to impose on your evening. After all, I only came here to return what's yours. You don't have to be so hospitable for a man you barely know. Well, my dear, if you insist. Thank you for inviting me in. Your kindness will not go unawarded, I promise. Allow me to repay you another time. Now, where would you like me to sit? By the table? Understood. A drink? I'm sorry, my dear. I couldn't possibly do that to you. Oh, right. My apologies. Some tea would be wonderful, thank you. Thank you. It feels warm in my hands. It's delightful. Forgive me if this sounds absurd, but I cannot remember the last time I had a drink like this. There's never any point in preparing teas and coffees with my condition, but it's comforting to know that the taste remains the same. On the contrary, my dear, the flavor is a lot better than that of blood, but unfortunately I need blood to sustain myself. It's a curse, really, but at least I can enjoy the food and drink from my mortal days, to an extent at least. My dear, you look concerned. What's ailing you at this hour? It's okay. You don't have to be so reserved when you're around me. Let's talk, like we once did at the harbor. I've been vulnerable with you, so now I suppose it's your turn. You have my unwavering attention and support. Remember what I said at the harbor. I have no use for your stories, nor do I possess any ill motives. Your words are safe with me. I promise. Now breathe in and out. Tell me what's on your mind. Ah, I see. I suppose my discussion about the vampiric left you shaken. Well, I shouldn't say vampiric. Like I said the other night, these creatures, we aren't vampires. Never were and never will be. They are in a league of their own, or so to say. I really don't know how to explain what we are. We share the same qualities of a vampire, yes, but it's complicated. You see, our species are called sanguis creaturae, or blood creatures in English. We are seen as a lower species to vampires, all because they have bourgeoisie blood coursing through them. It's very unfair if you ask me. But along with their blood status, they also possess greater abilities such as hypnosis, which sets them apart from us even more. It's all just a game of privilege, I'm afraid. Tell me, what is it about this sanguis creature that makes you nervous? You seemed quite brave the last time I talked about them. Oh. I'm sorry to say this, my dear, but your fears are very much valid. There is indeed a good chance that they're stalking you. After all, you're one of the only mortals to walk around the town alone at night. I imagine they've taken quite the liking to you. Although, you shouldn't worry yourself too much. Since I've talked to you, they most likely think that I've placed a form of claim on you. You see, they only hunt what they know they can capture. And since I've interacted with you, they'll think you're unattainable. I guess we should consider our meeting a lucky one. To think, if neither of us went to the harbor that evening, you might have been, well, you might have been killed. And not just that, you might have been made into one of us. But let's not linger on that thought any longer. You're safe. You needn't worry about any surprise attacks or kidnappings. I'll do what I can to keep you safe. I promise. Is there anything else you would like to discuss? Any more questions or worries that you'd like to get off your chest? Oh, my dear, Yes, I've killed people in the past. You have to understand, though, I never wanted to. When you are what I am, your hunger becomes your sole drive. I've never been proud of my actions. There's nothing to be proud of. But it is something I am trying to control. I don't drink human blood anymore. Those days are far behind me. For now, I make do with animal blood. Sure, it's not as sustaining as human blood, but it's enough to get me through each night. I suppose you can tell from my ill appearance. Admittedly, I'm not as healthy as I once was. But it's okay. There are far worse situations to be in. I'll survive. I do feel tempted at times, yes. Especially when there's blood just within my reach. When I see a cut, or a gash, or even a grazed knee, I begin to feel that all-familiar adrenaline pump through my veins. But I've learnt to control it. I either wait it out patiently, or search for some stray animal. Never pets, though. I would never forgive myself if I drained a person's beloved pet. No. I've never drained anything as big as a cow or a horse. I usually go for rodents, like rats and mice. Draining about 3 or 4 of those animals is enough to get me through at least, 24 hours? Although, I must admit, I'm not as strong as I used to be. Yes, a couple of rodents give me the strength to walk and talk as much as I'd like, but it wouldn't be enough to win a fist fight. And I know this from experience. You see, when I chose to drink animal blood instead of human blood, the others were not pleased in the slightest. They couldn't understand my sudden change of heart, and no one ever attempted to do so. Instead, they demonstrated their irritation by cornering me in an alley and beating me to a pulp. I didn't have the strength to defend myself, and so I endured it for as long as I could before passing out on the cobblestone below. They don't talk to me anymore. No one does. I suppose you might consider me a lone wolf of sorts. No offense to the werewolves, of course. My dear, I'm very much grateful for your concern, but you have nothing to be sorry about. On the contrary, you have been my lighthouse in this eternal darkness I traverse through. At the Harbour, you knew exactly what I was, and yet you never once struck me down. And now, you offer me a place to rest along with the hot drink. You know what kind of monster I am, and yet you still lend me an ear. For that, I owe everything. You never have to apologize to me. Never. Do you understand? Good. I'm glad. Your home is lovely, by the way. I'm sorry I didn't say anything earlier. Did you buy it yourself, or maybe it was inherited? Ah, that's nice to hear. Well, it's very cozy, nonetheless. I'm quite the fan, if I do say so myself. What do you do for work? That is, if you don't mind me asking. You work on your own fishing boat? Huh. That's wonderful to hear. Tell me, what's the fishing industry like these days? I hear that demand has fallen significantly since my time. That's unfortunate to hear, my dear. I'm sure you'll find your footing again. Remember, you can always ask me for some advice if you seek it. After all, I used to be quite the fisherman. Of course. I would love to see your vessel someday. Maybe you could give me a tour. Let me relive my happier days for a moment or so. Thank you. It would mean the absolute world to me. I'm sorry, you wouldn't by chance have the time, would you? I want to make sure I leave before sunrise. Also, I would hate to keep you from your bed any longer. You can deny it all you please, but you've been yawning all evening now. What time is it? Well, in that case I should be leaving. The sun will start to rise in a couple of hours. Thank you once again for your hospitality. I quite enjoyed the time we spent together. Yes, I'm sure I have everything. You can always come and return something if I don't. After all, you know where to find me. Again, I'm terribly sorry about what happened to your handkerchief. I can always go back to the market and buy you another. You see, I know a man. He can... Are you certain it's okay? Well, all right then. I shall see you another night. Also, don't forget to show me your boat. I'd love to have that tour. I'll hold you to that promise. Farewell, my dear. I'm sure we'll see each other soon.